hope you can hear me. Today, it's Monday. Why am I so excited that it's Monday? That's weird. I need to calm down. I hope you can hear me. I'm gonna wait until somebody can come on and sound check me. Oh, hey, Mona. Oh, you are Johnny on the spot, girl. Can you tell me if you can hear me? I need a sound checker. So I'm using this earbud and I want to make sure that you can hear me before I start rambling. Clean the camera. Can you hear me? Okay. Yes, I don't like Monday. You can hear me. Okay, good. Okay, wonderful. Yes, I'm excited this Monday. Okay, so this is what happens. So Mondays are the beginning of all the chaos, right? And we wish that there were more days on the weekend. We trudge through the week. We get to Friday. We're so happy it's the weekend. And I do this thing where it's like Friday, I talked to you guys for the last time on Friday, and I'm like, okay, I get a break, but at the same time, Friday afternoon comes, I start having like all these epiphanies, and I'm like, oh, I can't wait to tell them this on Monday. So my weekends are great, and on Sundays, honestly, I used to have a job that was pretty stressful, and I would kind of like be sick going into Sunday evening because I know it's like the beginning of the end. But now my job is pretty enjoyable, and it's not sickening on Sunday night. But come on, people don't know how to use like stop signs. It's weird. So coming on to Monday, like Sunday night is not stressful at all. Coming on to Monday is not bad. Hey, Diane. It's not bad at all, but just like the obligation stuff you have to go through, so it's kind of a little bit like, oh, here we go again, another week on the what's that thing, the hamster wheel, and just kind of going through it. Maybe sometime this week we'll talk about cycles and stuff, and like our life cycle. Okay, so today I'm going to talk to you about the stock market because it's Magic Money Monday, and I have to give the intro. So this is Travel Chat. This is a show where I use my super long commute to talk through my personal development and to answer questions and to talk about the law of attraction and how I'm using the law of attraction in my daily life and the epiphanies that I get every day and just like how it all works. That way, one day, when I am sitting on the stage across from Oprah telling my story, and there's not enough time to talk about like how I got there, you guys will know that it wasn't magic, that like there were actual steps and actual, like there was a road, a map to it. Whereas a lot of times we see people who are famous and they're telling their story and it's just like, oh my God, she's this way because she had this, that, and the other, and there's no way I could do anything like that with my life. And I just really want to show you that everybody starts somewhere, and there is a lot, that goes into it. Not work, because I don't work on my business. My business is fun. Like I work at my job. I work to get along with people. I work to where Mona knows the IDT, that's work. Like cooperating and treating people on a team, that's work. But my business is fun. My mastermind with Diane is mega fun. These kinds of things are not work, but the personal development is the thing that pushes your life forward. So, and the personal development is what I'm talking through with you guys. That's like just digging deep and figuring out the truth about why you act the way you act, and figuring out if it's appropriate or if you can change it, and making goals and heading towards those goals. Not for what the goals will do in your life. Like we talked last week, it's not about having more money, but it's for who you become in doing that. So who am I going to become by pursuing having a debt-free status? And so that's kind of what I'm talking to you about today. So like I said, one day you'll be able to say like, oh my gosh, I know the ins and outs of how she got to this point, because it wasn't just an overnight magic. It wasn't like somebody discovered you. It was like you were putting in the vibrational work, the self-development. And hopefully I'm not just talking at you and you, I mean, I know Diane for sure, but I don't know Mona because we haven't talked about this, but hopefully it's not like you're watching and you're like, oh, that's nice. Oh, this is entertaining. Oh, that's kind of cool. But I hope that you're also thinking critically about it and going along with me. I know Diane is, like I said, because we talk about it all the time, but that is actually something like you find a little bit or piece of what I'm talking about in the morning that you can implement into your life and be like, you know what, I'm gonna try that. I'm gonna make my fears list and I'm gonna make that my to-do list, that kind of thing. That way, when I'm sitting across the stage from Oprah in her masterclass or whatever it is that she's doing, that you are also somewhere, you know what I mean? Like you are not like in the same place doing the same thing day after day, but you're also doing something that makes you feel lit up and on fire, because that is the point. Otherwise, I'm just a girl driving her car, talking to herself on video. So, this is what's going on with the stock market. Okay, I want to tell you guys, so was it last year? This is 2019, this is 2018. The big year of all the debt. And I had been a practicing physician for I think 11 years at that point, and found that I had like 6-figure debt, and it was so depressing because I was always, from my very first job, even from residency, I was like, Lord, if you show me something else that I could do really well and make a lot of money, I will jump in with both feet. Like I never felt like medicine was the best fit for me. I got into medicine to help people and because I like the creativity of it. And right as I was finishing med school and going into residency, it all changed. Like the culture of medicine changed, and it wasn't a lot of fun anymore. It wasn't fun. So I was always like feeling like it wasn't a good fit for me, and I didn't feel like I really loved it. I didn't like going there every day and doing what I had to do, but I did it, and I did it for over a decade. So when I realized I had 6-figure debt, I was really pissed off is what I was, because I'm like, here I am sacrificing my life, my social life, my free time. I had a failed marriage in the process, and it was like a lot of these things can be traced back to this career I had chosen. And now I have all this debt, and I was like, what? Like I'm still paying for the pain that I have. And a lot of my debt was associated with being unhappy and trying to shop and buy things that would make me feel happy. And of course they didn't. And, you know, it was kind of like, here we are. So what I did was I discovered the FIRE movement, and that was a miracle. If you haven't heard the story of how I discovered the FIRE movement, check out this second issue of Planner Girl magazine. The editors asked me to write my story for the magazine, blocking the sun, and I did. It came out on 9/11, and I'll link it in the comments because it's it'll really explain a lot as to what all happened and how, like, the magic that led to discovering FIRE. The FIRE movement is FIRE. It stands for Financial Independence, Retire Early, and it's a movement. I think so it's like it skipped a generation. So there was like 2 generations ago that were talking about like retiring early and just becoming financially independent so you don't have to work for someone else. And that kind of was like a few people, and then it kind of died down a little bit. And then the millennials picked it back up. And millennials get a bad rap. I love millennials. I probably could do a whole show on why I love millennials. And I am not a millennial. I think I'm a Gen Xer. I think. Anyway, so the millennials have picked this idea up and ran with it. And so now the FIRE movement is a big thing. People who are working very hard, like they go to school, right? Then they work very hard at some kind of corporate job or something that's tedious and they probably hate it. And they save like 80% of their income so that after 10 years, they don't have to work anymore because they've invested all this money, and now they can just live off of the dividends, and they can do like a passion project. Like you could make goat's milk soap. out of your basement and sell it online or something like that. Like, you could do whatever. You could have a planner company like I have, and you can just do that as your job, but you don't have to rely on it for income. Like, it's a passion project, but it actually does end up making you income too. And if it seems like I'm talking fast, I am, because there's so much I want to tell you guys before I get to work. And I'll probably have to be continued tomorrow if I need to slow it down. So, because this is like the background. So the millennials have rekindled this FIRE movement, and they're all about telling you how to do this. And the thing is, the debt-free community and the FIRE movement, it's a more inclusive community because it's online now, and so anybody can access that. And then they have little local groups if you want to actually meet up with people from that same community and, you know, have friends who feel the way you feel, because most of the time your family and your friends are not going to understand what the heck you're doing. They're not going to get it. They're not going to support you really until they see the results. Like, when they see you paying off all your debt, then they'll be like, oh, okay, can you show me how to do it? But while you're doing it, they're going to be like, why can't you go out? Why are you paying extra on your mortgage? Why are you doing this? That's crazy. Why are you doing that? Why are you saving 80% of your income? That's ridiculous. So one thing that happened as I discovered FIRE and discovered, you know, the pursuit of FIRE, there are a couple that I can think of off the top of my head. Leaders from the 2 generations ago FIRE movement who have written books to teach the millennials like what they've already known so they can build off of that. And 2 of these people, one is Vicki Robin, and she wrote a book called, what is Vicki? Your Money or Your Life. Vicki Robin, Your Money or Your Life. I'll put the name down in the comments. And the other one is J.L. Collins, and he has a blog called J.L. Collins NH, and his book is called The Simple Path to Wealth. I started reading everything I could get my hands on, and I'm saying that like virtually because I actually was Audible, and I was getting like all of these books that I was listening to podcasts from the FIRE movement, and every book that they recommended, I was like getting that book, listening to that book, going back to, you know, FIRE podcast to hear what the next book is I should get. And so I was like, book, podcast, and I learned so much. It was like a crash course in money, in a crash course in lifestyle, in a crash course in side hustles, all this stuff for the whole year of 2018. And so consequently, when I started, or I should finish my sentence. Consequently, I fired my financial planners. So when I started in residency in 2004, that's when I first started making money ever in my life. I think I made like $40-something thousand a year as a single girl, and coming from a background of nobody in my family knew how to manage money. Maybe we knew how to earn, but not a lot, and we certainly didn't know how to keep it or make it grow or, you know, anything like that. So these financial planners came to our residency program to tell us what they did, because we had a room full of ripe and ready of, you know, future potential earners who didn't know how to manage money. So I went up to the guy afterwards and I was like, I'm really interested. I have no idea what I'm doing and I'm going to need some help. And the guy who was there was amazing. And we instantly clicked in that he became my teacher, and I really appreciated everything he was teaching me how to do. Unfortunately, he obviously was teaching me how to understand the products that he wanted me to purchase. So I got, his sort of plan, what their company pushed people to get, because I didn't know any better. He taught me, oh, this is what you need, this is the best, this is the best. But he was a very sincere guy and I trusted him. And so I went along with it all, and that set up the next decade of my life. Now, where things kind of went off the rails was about, I would say, 5 years, maybe 5 years ago or less, he left the company. And the person who now had my account was his boss. And his boss was like a real slickster, real aggressive, kind of assertive, masculine, super masculine guy that I did not click with. Like, I didn't like, I liked him as a person, but I didn't like his approach to anything. And like I said, he as a person was a nice person, providing for his family, proud of his college, that kind of thing, just like super, but his super masculine energy was a turnoff for me. And as I got to know myself more and more, I realized that it wasn't vibing with me. I didn't feel comfortable with the relationship. And also, we hit 2018 when I started learning about money and teaching myself, giving myself a crash course in investing and saving and learning all the stuff I never ever learned before. And hey, Jairus. And I realized that it wasn't complicated, right? And so that's the message I'm going to share with you guys. And it's 7:48. So if I have to continue this tomorrow, then I would let this be the setup, the background information for what we talk about tomorrow, which is a meat of stock market investing, because I don't want to breeze through it. I don't want to like make it just simple, you know, like real fast, like and then go, because I really want you to feel what I'm saying. So I'm going to give you the background, and then we'll get more into it tomorrow. We'll do a Magic Money Monday part 2. So what I learned in my year of research into all things money was that creating wealth, building wealth and creating it and sustaining it is not complicated. It is so simple, y'all. And because it's so simple, you will have people try to complicate it, because doing this stuff for you is a career, right? Like having a money manager or financial advisor or a wealth designer is a career. And the way that they make money is by selling you these products and having this super complicated structure that you can't understand, so they have to do it for you. And if you don't come from like a wealthy background, or you know, if you come from a middle class background, or even lower than that, like if you just don't understand how money works, it's so complicated. Actually, it's not complicated, but it's intimidating. And that's where I was. I was always so intimidated by it, because I was like, I don't know how to do this. And instead of learning myself, I was like, do this for me, because I'm going to totally screw it up. And I'm glad I did that, because I learned a lot. And I probably wouldn't have, I mean, I was immature until I had my kids at age 37. So I probably wouldn't have gone out on my own to figure out how it worked. I just thought it was too much that I couldn't do it. So raise your hand if you feel like managing money and investing in the stock market is complicated. So what happens is, it looks complicated. If you're like me and you hear somebody saying, let me tell you about the stock market, your eyes are already glazing over, you're already getting sweaty and feeling like, I can't. But I'm going to tell you how simple it is, because you actually can. So the way that it's broken down is that typically you have 2 types of investments, but actually 3, but you have 2 types of ways to dealing with your money. 1 is long-term investments, 2 is short-term investments, and 3, if you want to call it that, is cash. And cash does not mean like you actually have cash in your wallet, like a cash envelope, like Dave Ramsey says, but cash means that you have liquid assets, like you have money in the bank, like your checking account. That's basically considered cash. You can go to the ATM machine, you can pull out money, or you can use your debit card, like that's all considered cash. Long-term investments are investments like in the stock market or real estate. And when you hear the word real estate, like for me, if I hear the word real estate, I already get glazed over and sweaty and a little bit like my mind is wandering, because I'm like, what do you mean? That it sounds complicated. The word real estate sounds complicated. But real estate only means that you buy something. You buy a property, and that property, if it's an investment property, that property is going to give you money back. It's a long-term investment, because day after day you're not going to be making money, but year after year you're going to be making money from it. So it's a long-term investment. And so those are the two types of long-term investments. Is real estate investment, which basically means you buy a house, or if you ball in like that, you buy an apartment complex. Whatever it is that you buy, you've bought something. And the second type is stock market investing. And basically that is you bought a piece of paper. Okay? You bought a piece of paper that over the long term is going to pay you money. All right, so those are two types of long term. Short term investment is like a money market account. And me and Diane have talked about this before, because she was in the budgeting mastermind group that I did over the summer. And I told everybody, like, anyone that I coach about money, that's the first thing I say is, where's your savings? If your savings is in your regular bank's savings account, why do I have like the Taliban light mask thing on? I don't know. It's going to totally ruin my video. I think it's because it's fall and like everything is, the sun is in a different place. I don't know how. I'm not an astrologer or whatever, whoever deals with the earth. But anyway, so the first thing I tell people is, where is your savings? If your savings is in your regular bank savings account, you are missing out. And don't feel any shame or blame or guilt or anything if you've been missing out. You could have been missing out for 30 years like me. It's fine. But you need to have that in a high yield account, meaning that it's got a great interest rate, and if your money is just sitting there in savings, it's also growing. It can grow like 2% in some of these accounts. So I did a show on that. We can talk about that another day. But that's a short-term investment, because that's not something that you have to wait, for 10 or 15 years for it to pay off. Like, it pays off month after month after month. You put money in your money market account, at the end of the month, they're telling you how much you made, right? Even if it's $2, right? Depending on how much you have in there, you get a percentage of that back. So it's totally worth it. So that's short-term investing. They take that money, they're investing it, and they're giving you part of the profit. But when you use your banking savings account, you get like a penny a month. It's not that great. So don't let your money, if your money's just going to be sitting somewhere, don't let it sit somewhere where it's not a high interest earning money market account. My favorite is the Capital One 360 money market account. You can Google that. It takes 5 minutes to set it up. You can put money in it, a little bit of money in it each month for savings, and that sucker will grow. Try not to take any money from it. Just put money in it, put money in it, put money in it. Forget that you have it. Set it up like an automatic withdrawal. Forget that you have it. Check back in a year. Like, mark your calendar. Check back in a year and see how much you have. You will be astonished. It's amazing. So that's a short-term investment vehicle. So we'll talk in the next 2 days, we'll talk only about the long term, because I think those are the scariest ones. Because the money market, that's straightforward. Like, open a money market, put money in it, walk away, right? But the long-term investments is what people get so nervous about, and they feel so intimidated by. They feel like, I can't do this. Like, this is for somebody who's, a stockbroker or something like that, but it's not. And the sooner you realize that it's not, that it's for you, the sooner you can start setting up your future. So let me tell you how to make it complicated. We're not going to talk about real estate investment, aka buying a house. We're not going to talk about that, okay? We're going to talk about the paper. We will talk about the paper, which is the stock market investing. All right, so there are 3 types of stock market investments. One is large cap, mid cap, small cap. Throw all that out the window. Don't worry about that. It's just a way that they classify the companies. So cap stands for capitalization. Large cap meaning it's a multi-billion-dollar company. So when you think large cap, think of Coca-Cola, right? It's a huge company. It's got capitalization means how much money it has. Like, it has buying power. Like, it has so much money, right? So it's a large cap. And so when you think about that, you think mid cap is like a mid-sized company, small cap is a small-sized company. And they also classify stocks as if it's a domestic stock, if it's a foreign stock, or if it's an emerging market. Emerging markets are the riskiest because this is saying something like, okay, this is a part of the world. Like, if you invest in an emerging market, that means you are investing in a part of the world that we're banking on them to grow. Like a small African country that's just come out of war and now they're trying to grow their economy. So your investment, like your literal dollars, like you give them $20 to help put their country back together. So it's kind of risky because you really don't know. Like I'm in Texas, so if I'm giving money to the Congo, like I don't know if they're going to mismanage the money or if the government's going to steal it, if there's going to be a coup or what. Like, it's risky, but the rewards are great. So the more risky the investment, the higher the rewards. And that's just the way it goes. That's the way it goes in life. You know, if you try to do something that nobody else wants to do, if you succeed at it, everybody's going to be like, whoa, look what you did. It's the same concept. The higher the risk, the higher the rewards. So, and I'm not going to talk you into doing anything risky because I'm not a risky person. I'm super like, let's be safe with the cash here. You know, I don't know what's going on. But since I've learned what all this means, I've been a little more risky than I would have been if I was just blind, if I didn't know what it all meant. So I want you to be educated because knowledge is power. So the other way that they classify stocks is if it's a stock or if it's a bond. So there's three ways to think about long-term investing too. That's stocks, bonds, and cash. So I hope this isn't too confusing, all these different classifications, because when I tell you how to do it, you'll get why all this stuff really doesn't matter. So stocks are, you're investing in the stock market, and the stock market is volatile. Like every hour of the day, every day of the week, it's up, it's down, it's up, it's down. The stock market is open from 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. It's closed on the weekends, closed in the evenings. And people are trading. They're buying and selling and buying and selling. That's when they're doing, what's called trading, is when they're buying and selling stock all day long. And so it's going up, it's going down, it's going up, it's going down. Don't look at that. The way the stocks work is it's up, it's down, it's up, it's down. But over the long term, it's going up. Over the long term, it's going up. So if you look at it hour by hour, it may be up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, down, down. That doesn't matter because you're in it for the long term. When you invest in the stock market, you are not going to be a day trader. I'm going to tell you that right now. Day trading is not for you. If you're watching this video to learn how to work the stock market, you are not a day trader. Like, you need to have some serious cojones to be trading stock every 3 days. That's crazy because you could really lose a lot of money. But what you need to know is that if you invest your money, you're in it for the long haul. So you're in it for a decade or more. And you need to have the patience to put your money there and leave it. Do not touch it. Do not rethink it. Do not, like, sometimes I get my statements and I know that I've heard the buzz that the stock market is down. I won't even look at my statement. I'll open it up. I'll put it in my financial literacy, the big book, the big binder of all your statements, and I won't even look at the balance because I know if it dips down, I'm going to be like, ah! But guess what? It comes up because it goes down, up, but overall, it always goes up. And your job, your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to put your money there and leave it alone and don't look at it. Now, this seems kind of crazy, but I'm going to tell you, that is the key to it. People who look at it all the time, they get nervous when the stock market is going down. They get super nervous and they want to take their money out before it goes all the way down. That's not the right thing to do. Let it go down and it'll rebound. It always rebounds. Let me tell you what Jim Rohn says. This is as an aside. What comes after day? Night. Night will always follow day. That is the law of the universe. You will not ever say, well, it's been day for 5 days, unless you're in Alaska, I guess. Night always follows day. Okay? What comes after a storm is peace, calm. But after a while of peace and calm, another storm is going to come, right? Things are not constant like that, right? Unless you're new to the planet, you get surprised. Are you surprised when the sun goes down? No, you're not surprised when the sun goes down. So why is it that when people invest in the stock market and the market is like going so well, and all of a sudden it starts going back down because there's like a recession, then they're like surprised? And if you watch the news, they act like they're surprised, like it's like the end of the world. But that's just entertainment. It is not the end of the world, because what happens after night? What comes after night? Day. It all comes back. It all comes back. So even after the crash in the 30s, it rebounded even higher than it was before. So the people who kept their money in the market got rich once the market rebounded. But if you pull your money out thinking like, oh my gosh, let's stop the bleeding, you're gonna miss out. Like, you've lost money. So you're in it for the long haul. If you invest in stocks, you're not trading things all the time. You get something and you keep it for a long time. So this is how to do it. This is a simple path to wealth. And J.L. Collins' book is called The Simple Path to Wealth. And he can explain all this for you to your satisfaction, to answer every question if you have one. It's an amazing book. I read it last year. Actually, thinking about this, I'm going to read it again because I love this book. I think I read it twice. So the FIRE community, the FIRE movement, espouses using index funds. Index funds is the fancy word for investing in the complete and total stock market. So back in the 70s, there was like some Nobel Prize winning research about the stock market and how money works. And they found that if you invest in index funds, you have a very low risk. Let me tell you about how funds are, because I just realized I said index funds and this is kind of confusing. So a mutual fund, you can invest in stocks in one of two ways. You can invest in a mutual fund, or you can invest in a did I say mutual fund? A single stock or a mutual fund. A mutual fund is a group of stocks. When you buy stock, you're basically buying a piece of the company, right? So let's go back to Coca-Cola. This weird like vitiligo lighting that I have going on. Let's go back to Coca-Cola. If you buy shares are the What? My sound is off again? Diane, you're killing me. I got this thing in. Can y'all hear me? If you invest in the stock market, you are okay. If you invest in the stock market, you're basically buying a share of the company. A share is just a small piece of a company. So if you buy Coca-Cola, that means that you're buying a part of the company, Coca-Cola, and so whatever profit they make, they give you some of it because you're part of the company. So it's important to invest in the stock market because you are buying a Coca-Cola, like you're buying a Coke. This isn't a Coke, but you're buying a Coke, right? You can buy a Coke and drink a Coke and be a consumer of Coke, or you can buy a Hey, sorry about that. I'm on call, so somebody was calling me. Actually, it was somebody who watches my show on YouTube every single show and makes a comment every single time. So he's like, hey, how are you? I'm like, I'm doing the show. So that was funny. So if you buy a Coke and you consume a Coke, that's one thing. Why not buy a piece of the company? That way, every time you personally buy a Coke and consume a Coke, you get dividends, baby. Like, you're helping your own company, right? So this is how you get financial power, is by you buy. Okay, last April, when I opened my Etsy shop on April 30th, 2018, I also bought stock in Etsy. As soon as Etsy stock was available to buy and I heard about it, I bought stock in Etsy because I knew that Etsy was a wonderful place that I like to shop, and now I was going to have a shop on Etsy. I wanted to have a piece of whatever profit, whatever dividends that Etsy had. I wanted to be a part of that. Okay, so this is what it means when you buy. You were so amazing. Diane says she bought stock too. So even if it's just a little bit, like you buy something just so you can have your hands in the clay also, especially if it's a company you believe in. And this is called individual stock. So I probably have like maybe 20 companies that are individual stock. And the way you do that is that you don't just buy something you're not sure. Like you hear about this CBD company, and so you're going to buy stock in this CBD company. Well, that's not a sure thing because you don't know anything about CBD. You don't know if they're a good company or if they're not. But Amazon has stock. It's kind of expensive, but you can buy one share of it, because if you use Amazon and you love Amazon, then you're like, you know what? I think I should get some of this, right? Like you're a consumer of Amazon, buy some Amazon stock. So I wouldn't recommend having an entire portfolio of companies like that, because you start to get into territory that you don't know so much about. You know, you hear about companies going under all the time, like Toys R Us went out of business and that kind of thing. And so it's like, if a company goes out of business and you have stock in that company, then you've lost the game, right? You've lost the game. You would need to you need to sell your stock before that company starts going out of business, and the stock won't be worth as much if they're all, going downhill, crashing and burning. That is where index funds come in. Or let me back up before I'm so eager to tell y'all about index funds, because that's what the FIRE community uses. So maybe I'll talk about that tomorrow, because I'm about to have to get out of the car. But so we talk about individual stock like Etsy, Amazon, just one stock at a time. Or you can buy a mutual fund, which are a group of companies. A stockbroker has put them all in the same basket. It might be 5 or 6 or 7 individual companies all grouped together like a bundle, and you buy the bundle, you buy shares of the bundle, and when they, if somebody's coming up, you know what I mean, like as the group comes up, that's what you get, that's the value that you get from the group. And let's see if my lighting can be better. So you'll get the benefit of a bunch of different companies, all kind of, somebody might be up, somebody might be down, but it all kind of balances out, and you kind of will grow with that group of companies. But here's the thing about index funds. Index funds are, it's not getting better, it's only getting worse. The sun is behind me, so, okay, maybe looks like I'm in heaven. Oh, that is not gonna work at all. Yeah, I need to get out the car anyway. Last thing. Index funds are the stock market that all of the best performing, all the top performing companies in the entire stock market is represented by the index fund. So you're not following any individual companies, you're following the top, like the best of all the companies of the entire stock market. So you're following the index. So the beauty of this is that if you have, and it's a mutual fund, it's just a group of, I think it's the S&P 500, so the top 500 performing companies. So the beauty of this is that you have this fund, right? So say you have a mutual fund that's not an index fund, like a regular mutual fund that has a bunch of companies in it, and one company is just crashing and burning. Like say you have Toys R Us in your index, in your mutual fund, and it's dragging your whole fund down. So you're losing money because one of the companies is failing. Well, the difference with the index funds is that it's like the top 500 performing companies. And because it's the top 500 performing, and it's not these top companies, like it's not this specific company, that specific company, this specific, no, it's just like whoever's ranking in the top 500 are in this fund. That means that when they start dipping down, they get kicked out of the fund and a new company comes in. I'm gonna say that again because I don't want it to be complicated. When you have an index fund, it's a mutual fund of a bunch of companies, the top 500 companies performing on the New York Stock Exchange, and it's a ranking, right? And if you know anything about ranking, like say like when you're in high school and you got your class rank, if you got a bad grade and you fell off the top, you were in the top 10 in your class, that means somebody else got in that spot. Like you fell off and somebody else was up. And it's the same thing for these index funds. The top 500 performing companies are in this fund, and if number 500 dips down, then number 499 501 becomes number 500, and that's who's in your fund. You don't have to do anything for that. You don't have to change anything. You don't have to call anybody. You don't have to do anything. You just mind your business, keep your money in your index fund, and the fund itself will sort itself out. So you always have the best of the best performers from the stock market if you invest in index funds. So the simplest path to wealth that the millennials have figured out, which I guess J.L. Collins, he's like a grandpa's age, and Vicky Robbins, she's like a grandma's age. Like, I don't even know how old they are, but they're from like, they were doing this in the 60s and the 50s, right? They've been doing this for a long time. And now there's in the 70s, this company called Vanguard was created, and they make this so easy. And they do it with super low fees, because when you have these mutual funds, somebody's managing the fund. Like, you don't have to do it, and you don't have to tell them to do it, but there's somebody who's moving these companies in and out of the fund, and that person has to be paid. So they have fees to own the fund. What I learned in 2018, when I started doing all this research myself, was that the financial planners that was managing my money, they had high fees. Like, they were taking a lot of the money. Like, say I was making, let's just say, for instance, if I was making $100, they were taking like $50. And if you, in this, it was crazy. Like, their statements were so complicated. When I got a statement from them, I couldn't even read it myself. Like, I had to take it to them and say, can you explain what this means? Or have it on the phone and have them tell me what everything meant. So I started educating myself. And after I educated myself, I started looking at other statements and realizing that if I had a self-directed fund, meaning I took my money and put it in the index fund, and we'll talk about bonds. But if I did this myself, the statement that I got would be so simple, and it'd be like this. It looks just like a bank statement. This is how much you had at the beginning of the month. This is how much that was added or subtracted. This is how much you have now. These are the stocks that you're invested in. This is how much they cost. This is what percentage you own. It was so simple that I told these guys, I was like, look, you are overly complicating this. I can't even read the statement. I can't even read one part of the statement. And they were doing that to make it look like I couldn't do it myself. And I told them, I said, I think I can do this myself, but with the way that you sent me this piece of paper is so complicated, it doesn't have to be this complicated. And I was so mad about that, because I'm like, who overly complicates something so they can charge somebody for it? That just made me so mad, because I like to deal in integrity, and I like to deal with people who are honest and straightforward. And I was with these people for over 10 years, and I felt like they were not honest and straightforward with me. So knowledge is power. So you guys, when you learn this stuff yourself, you can do anything. All right, so I started doing this myself. We fired them. I got all my money out. I took it to Chase Bank, and I told them what I felt them out. Like, we had a couple interviews, and I was like feeling them out about how they felt about the fire community, the fire movement. And of course, banks are the natural adversary for the fire community, because for one, we're not trying to rack up a bunch of debt, and for two, we're using mutual funds and index funds, and we're going to do it ourselves. So I had the guy, we put all the money in and everything, and he chose some funds for me, and I was watching to see which funds he would choose. And he was choosing funds. They didn't have super high fees, but he wasn't choosing index funds. And when I told him I wanted index funds, he said, we don't do that. Like, we're not going to manage your index fund. You have to manage your index fund yourself. Like, we're not going to manage your index fund. I was like, cool, okay. So I bought a bunch of Vanguard stock, because Vanguard has the lowest fees. And now I think Prudential is trying to, because Vanguard is so popular and the fire community is so much into it, Prudential now has Vanguard, like a Vanguard-like fund. Like, there's other funds, basically what I'm trying to say is there's other funds that are trying to do what Vanguard is doing as far as super low fees and attract people who want to invest in index funds, because Vanguard's doing it so well. There's other stuff that goes into this too, but when you're just starting out, like, I took my retirement fund from work, because I was learning all this. I said, let me see what I have in my retirement fund. Looked at my retirement fund. It was effed up, y'all, because the default that they give you the default mutual fund that they invest in for you is so bottom bargain basement basic that it's just like, and if you're just looking at it and you're like, okay, something 2040, okay, I don't know what that means, and you don't know what all the individual stocks means, you don't know how to look at the IE ratio, like you're not sure what any of these things mean, then it looks like, okay, I guess they're doing the right thing for me. But if you do your research, and it's not even a lot of research. See, I say research and that even makes me feel like, oh my gosh, this is going to be scary. I'll tell you one thing to do. Read The Simple Path to Wealth. He even tells you to stock, like over and over again, 40 times in the book. He says VTSAX, VTSAX, which is the Vanguard index fund. And then when you go look for it, you may find a variation of VTSAX. And all you do is you go to your retirement plan and you see all the choices, because they give you a bunch of choices, and you find the one that says Vanguard and you find the one that says index, and anything that's similar to VTSAX, like VTIIX or something like that. And there's a way that you can read the cost and things like that. Pick that one. And there's a Vanguard Total Bond Market Fund too for your bonds. We can talk about that. I know this all sounds complicated. I'm throwing all these terms at you, but I'm telling you, this is as easy as kindergarten. This is like 1, 2, 3, ABC. It is not complicated. They will try to make you feel like this is so complicated. You have to be a banker to know this. You have to be an investment banker to understand this. You have to work on the stock exchange floor. You do not, okay? Simple girl from Northern California, focused on medicine, don't know crap about money. I took a crash course in my own personal education, and I learned all this stuff myself. And it is so simple, very simple. So that's where I would start. If you're at all interested in not getting screwed out of your money, read or listen to The Simple Path to Wealth. J.L. Collins is this older guy who he basically started a blog because he wanted his teenage daughter to understand how money works. So he started, like, it was like writing letters to his teenage daughter that later he turned into a book. And of course, everybody loves it. And so basically, when you listen to this book, it sounds like a really sweet grandpa. If you had a really sweet grandpa who took good care of you, that's what listening to this book is like. This really sweet grandpa who's telling you, this is how money works. This is what you should do. Don't worry about this. It's simple. Stop making it complicated. Don't let anybody talk you into making it complicated. Because honestly, when you start doing this, if you talk to anybody about it, they're going to be like, what about this? What about that? What about this? And start trying to make you feel like you don't know what you're doing. But in all honesty, they don't know what they're doing. Because these financial planners, and I can tell you this straight up because I had to go toe to toe with these financial planners. I have had breakups. I had a divorce that was easier than getting out of a relationship with these financial planners. They did not want to give up on my money that they were getting every month. And plus, my husband was in medical school, and at this point, he was in his 3rd year of medical school. So they already had their gravy train lined up because they were like, we got her, she's a doctor. He's about to be a doctor. We about to have double doctor money. And they're doing what we say to do. And when I started bucking the system, they did not want to let me go. They were not trying to give me any kind of information. They wouldn't tell me how much money I had in my accounts. Like, they were really pulling against this. So every time I came to them saying, this is simple, y'all are making this complicated, this is what I want to do, they came back trying to tell me, like I said, super masculine energy, trying to tell me that I didn't know what I was talking about. That, what about this? You didn't think about this. You need some emerging markets. You need some foreign, you need a mix of foreign capital in your portfolio. And a portfolio is basically just what you've bought, right? What you've invested in, that's your portfolio. But here's the thing about using index funds. You can use index, and I know Dave Ramsey, he says he uses index funds, plus he does a percentage into different markets. But if you look at these Fortune 500 companies, if you look at the top 500 companies performing on the stock market, they are American-based companies, but they have reach around the world. So do you really need emerging markets? Do you really need foreign capital? Because think about it. If you invest in Amazon, right? Like, you don't think they have Amazon, the Amazon's not invested around the world? Yes, they are. if you look at Apple, like say you invest in Apple, everything from Apple is made in China, right? It's made in China. So if you're investing in Apple, you're investing in China. If you look at Coca-Cola, Coca-Cola has companies and you know, it's got its reach, it's got its hands in all these different countries. So by investing in a country in the Fortune 500, like the top 500 companies in America, you are also investing in companies around the world, because it's a global economy. Everybody's doing business all over the world. So don't let anybody tell you, oh, you just have index funds. Oh, you need this, you need that, you need this. No, you don't. You need index funds and you need bonds, and you can get them both from Vanguard for super cheap. And I guess tomorrow, if we continue talking about this, we can talk about like how to set this up, how to get it, because you can do it just straight up through your retirement fund at work, or you can do this as an individual by having like a I forget what it's called. I have to regroup, because I didn't mean to talk about that today, but as I'm talking, I'm like, well, somebody's probably saying, well, how do I even do that? Like if you're working at a job that has a 401k, it's as simple as going online and choosing. You just select what you want to invest in. So all the money that you have coming out of your paycheck every month, you're putting it in this account, an index fund that you have chosen, and you can do percentages. We'll talk about that tomorrow, because that's a whole long conversation. I gotta go to work. But I hope this was helpful as a first start. I mean, we can keep talking about this because I really want to demystify it. I don't know why I came up yesterday. It just came into my head. I was like, you need to talk about investments, because investments sound scary, and I want people not to be scared, because it's really, 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 really easy. Super duper easy. All right, ta-ta for now. Leave me any comments. Tell me what you're thinking, what scares you the most about it, what's the most confusing thing. Do you have a fund manager? Do you have a financial planner? Are you doing this by yourself? Did you just use the company default? Do you have matching at your job?